In this video we'll discuss another of the events that is useful with the RowExpander. So you can see here that we have a grid showing invoice headers, and for each invoice header, when we expand the row, we get to see the invoice items for that particular invoice header. But let's say that what we'd like to do is if there are no invoice items for a particular invoice header, let's say we'd like to actually suppress the display of this icon over here. So that's achieved by using the special show RowExpander icon event, and this event returns either a true or a false value, and if the event returns true, the icon is shown. Otherwise the icon is not shown. So I'm going to just temporarily comment out my code over here. Actually, I'll just put an exit function, which will be easier. So right now it's hard-coded to show, and if I go to the last page over here, I happen to know that invoice number 32 doesn't have any line items. So when I expand that row, you can see it says there no records in query, whereas this one obviously does have records. So I'd like to suppress this icon from displaying in the first place because there are no records, because there are no child records. Now obviously if you use this feature, it's going to make the grid slower to render, because you're going to have to pre-compute the number of child records for each grid before the grid is rendered. But if that's what you want to do, this is how you do it. So you can see here that what we've done in this code is we've opened up the child table, which is invoice items. We've done a query on invoice items where we're searching for all records where invoice number is equal to, and then we get the value from invoice number, which is in the parent grid, so this would be the value over here, the linking value. This is this value over there. So we're taking that value, e.rowdata.data, and that's described over here in this comment for the e.rowdata property. So we're getting the value of invoice number from the parent grid, and we're creating a filter expression over here. We're evaluating that filter expression, counting the number of records, and if the number of records is 0, then we set the show RowExpander icon to false. Otherwise we set it to true. Now the example here shows the corresponding syntax for if you're using a SQL-based grid, but the concept is pretty much the same. So let's go ahead now to working preview, and you can see that all of these records have the icon displayed because they do in fact have child records. But if I go to the last page, you'll see now that there is no icon next to this particular record number 32 here, because we've pre-computed the fact that there are no child records for that item over there. So this video explains then how to use the show RowExpander icon, and the one caveat here which I mentioned is that it can make rendering, well, it will make rendering your grid slower, because for each record in the grid you're going to have to execute this event and count the number of child records so that you can know whether the icon should be displayed or not displayed.